Your target market is receiving garbage cold emails every single day based on generic templates. Don't be one of those guys. You need to stand out from the crowd if you wanna close them. It's not just about being different, it's about being relevant. Valentin here, I've sent hundreds of thousands of cold emails in the past year, and one thing I've learned is that you cannot just copy and paste some generic script that you found online and pray for it to work. Instead, you need to be able to think for yourself and really go in depth into the head of your prospect to craft a really punchy message that will resonate with them and trigger them to reply and be interested in your service. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to craft the perfect cold email for every prospect, regardless of the industry, and start getting real results. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, I won't be sharing a simple script that you can just copy and paste and hope to get results with here. Instead, what we'll do is go through simple guidelines that you can reuse to craft your own version of the perfect cold email specifically for your target audience. So stay with me here and pay attention. The first thing to keep in mind when crafting a cold email is to remember what you're trying to achieve. And most of the time, you should be aiming to achieve those three goals, which are get read, be relevant, and trigger a reply that starts a good conversation and ultimately leading to a sale. But if you notice into 3 points, you won't find a point that says close the deal, because most of the time you won't be closing the deal right away from a single cold email, and that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal is to trigger curiosity from the prospect and make them enter your sales process so that after that you can close them, but you won't close them with one punch. It's just a way to make them enter your sales process. So your goal is to maximize your efficiency into hitting those 3 points while minimizing the amount of time you spend on every lead, because at the end of the day, cold emails is still a numbers game. And even if you double your reply rate, for example, if it takes you 10x time to write the email for those prospects, then it may not be worth it, because it's better to have 10 replies from 100 leads than 5 replies from 20 leads, because it means you can scale that much more easily, and scale is still an important factor when you speak about cold email. The other thing to keep in mind is to continuously test on your target audience, because what works for me will not necessarily work for you. What works on my audience won't necessarily work for your target audience. What works for my offer won't necessarily work for your specific offer. So anything you're finding online, you need to take it with a grain of salt, because it may not just be just the script, but it's oftentimes the bulk of the results is coming from the actual audience, the actual offer, and how much that resonates between the two. So if you have something different, then obviously you will have different results and you need to do things a little bit differently. That said, here are some starting points to be good at each of the mentioned goals. So if you want to get read, so this is obvious, but the shorter your email, then the more likely you will get read. So one thing to keep in mind is that you should aim for the shortest email possible while still conveying the information that you want to send. So if you have very important points to make in your email, then it may take you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences, and there is not a fixed length of the perfect cold email. But what you need to remember is to be concise, so that, okay, you have this amount of information to send, then you should be sending the shortest email possible that can convey this amount of information. This is what you need to keep in mind. The other thing is use a subject line that doesn't look salesy or spammy. To be honest, even with that, those subject lines you will get read, but if you want to maximize, you don't want to be sounding like every other cold emails that are badly written, because in that case, they will just assume that you're like everyone else, even if it's not the case, and they won't even open your email and will just put it in the trash or the spam folder. One trick here is to try and look like an internal email. So just go into your own email inbox and filter for emails you've sent to and from your colleagues and see how they are written in terms of the subject line, and just mimic that aspect which is unique, and definitely it doesn't sound like they're trying to sell you something, because, well, you're calling Aaron's, you're gonna sell you something. And this is exactly what you want to achieve with cold emails, so try to mimic that style. The last thing is be human. Do not make ChatGPT write you a very bad email and just take it like this and send it right away. You need to sound like an actual human. So yeah, act like this, and it will resonate because of your own authenticity. The second point is about being relevant to the prospect. And here really what you need to have is a clear and strong offer. Here we're going a bit further away from copywriting up to your actual products and offering. So you can't necessarily change what you're selling, but what you need to do as homework before trying to write cold emails is to really articulate your offer in a very punchy way, in a way that is concise and powerful, and that would trigger curiosity and interest from your prospect. Also try to talk less about your solution and your features and talk more about the actual pain and problem. Very often you see in cold emails, people are gonna list all the features of their magical solution. They're gonna pitch slap, when actually what you really want is to probe for the problem, because when you're reaching out to someone, you're actually not sure most of the time if they actually experience the problem that you're solving. So the first thing that you need to check before pitching someone is to check if they actually have the problem that you solve. And for that, the only way is to talk about that problem and not the solution yet. As I was mentioning before, the goal is not to close the deal right away. There will be time to talk about your solution later on. If there is an interest, if there is a problem to solve here, you will be able to pitch your solution in the second, third email or in the sales call. So instead, try to talk about the problem, describe the problem and the pain point that they may face, and ask them if that resonates with them. Another thing that makes your outreach very relevant is to have a contextual trigger that justify your outreach to them, that gives you a right reason to send them a message and not just out of the blue trying to sell something. So that isn't always possible depending on the offer, depending on your product, depending on what's interesting in terms of trigger for the problem. But whenever that's available, you need to be taking advantage of that, because it gives you basically a green light and a really strong reason to reach out. If you can have a clue that gives you more chance that the prospect actually need your product or service, then it's more likely to be relevant whenever you're reaching out to them. Finally, you want to trigger a reply that starts a good conversation that leads to a sale. And for that, many people still send their calendar link in the first email. And I think most of the time that's a mistake. Again, that goes hand in hand with the problem above of pitch slapping. Generally, when people are pitch slapping, they also put calendar link right away. But if you're just probing for the problem, then again, now it's not the time to schedule a call, because you don't know yet if there is something to be done here. So don't try to schedule a call if they don't even have the problem. It should also make sense on your hand in terms of protecting your time, because you don't want prospects that are not qualified taking your time on sales calls. You only want people that you can actually help. And so you need to be filtering those prospects out before sending them your calendar and scheduling calls. Instead of trying to schedule a call, have one clear call to action that is usually a question, and even better if they can just answer by yes or no, because that makes it very easy to reply. So just ask them a question like, does that resonate with you? Or should we explore further? Or something really simple that makes it very easy for them to reply, and then you can follow up and continue the conversation with either other qualification question or making them jump on the call depending on your sales process. And finally, remember that this is a conversation. Very often, so this really depends on your target audience, so match the tone appropriate to the target audience. You may need to be more or less formal depending on who's you're reaching to, but remember that they're human as well, and you want to sound exactly like them. If they talk very formally, then go for a formal email. If they're very casual, then be casual as well. Following those guidelines, writing your body copy is really where you can get creative. Again, highly recommend testing many different angles and formulas to see what works best in your industry and with your offer. But in general, a good copy is a copy that will be able to answer the following questions. Why them? Why now? And what's in it for them? If you can address those 3 questions with something that makes sense for your prospect, then they're very likely to be able to reply positively because it just makes sense. Now let's have a look at what it looks like quickly in practice. So I intentionally took a sample script that will not probably be relevant to your offer, so that you're not gonna just go and copy paste that script, but really, again, you need to be crafting your own script based on the method I've highlighted above. So here's the ICP was B2B people that were interested in cold emails on Twitter, and the way I was sourcing my leads was directly on Twitter. So I knew they were using Twitter, and that gave me the reason to reach out. I could say, I found your Twitter and saw you had an interest in cold emails. So the way I was sourcing my leads is by using Scriptwriting. I was just spotting tweets that was speaking about cold emails, and I was scrapping the people that I liked or retweeted or replied to that specific tweet, so they had interacted with cold email content. So I knew they were very likely interested or know about that topic. So this gives me the trigger to reach out, and immediately this starts as a relevant message. Then I just continue with a simple qualification question for me, which was just wondered what tools you're using to find emails currently, because my tool and my offer was about a software that helped them find emails on Twitter. And so I wanted to know if they were actively prospecting emails on Twitter or any other sources, and what are they currently doing, and is there an opportunity for me to add value to them. And the only way to know that is just to ask them. So I will just casually ask them that, so that again it starts the conversation, and then based on their reply I would be able to either disqualify them and just call it a day, not fit, or close them as a customer. Then I add the human touch. I had a PS line, which is very effective because it very often gets read, and I just put my Twitter account on there and say, oh, my Twitter account is there if you'd rather reply here. So it shows that I'm a human as well, and they can look me up on social media and see what I'm like, and it just creates an instant authenticity and just makes them more likely to reply. And as you can see, the overall email is very short. There's not a lot of things happening here. I've just described exactly why it answers the different questions, why them, why now, and all that. But as you can see, it takes very little space. This is a very short, concise emails here, and therefore it is very easy for them to reply. I also kept it very casual here in terms of tone, because those are Twitter users, generally SMBs, not big companies. It's very conversational. I'm just reaching out because I saw that Twitter account, so it's not something very formal. I could keep those emails very casual and conversational. If I had to reach out to another target audience, I would probably do it slightly differently. Again, you need to adapt based on what we've seen before and craft your own version of that. But I wanted to give you a quick example here what it looks like. And if you wonder what type of results you may get if you really make something that resonates, it's what this campaign gave us. So as I mentioned, I'm not sending this anymore, but when I was sending that, you can see I got almost 20% reply rate and more than 10% positive reply rate. This is very high because a lot of people don't even get 10% reply rate, including the negative replies. So this created a lot of opportunities for me to close, and I was able to qualify all those people very easily because of that qualification question. Now that you know how to craft the perfect cold email for any prospect, you can start producing emails that will convert. But as we've seen, this isn't the only factor that will impact your results. Other things like scraping, how you scrape and source your leads, and how you find emails and validate them also play a role into the performance of your cold email campaigns. And that is why I made another video going exactly over how to build a lead list in less than 6 minutes from Sales Navigator. So if you want to check out that video, click on the screen right now or click the second link in the description. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for other videos related to B2B prospecting. I will see you all in the next one.